What is going on, everyone? My name is Andy. Welcome back to another FPL video. In this one, it's transfer tips for Game Week 28. So I'm going to go through some of the popular players being put into people's teams or being taken out and give my opinion on whether they're good moves or not. And yes, I'll talk about all those cheap midfielders. So let's get into it. So let's start with the big question of the week. Which of the cheap-ish midfielders should you look to bring in ahead of Game Week 28? This is for those of you that are looking to sell Enzo Fernandez, Declan Rice, or just generally any midfielder that needs to leave your team. The main 6 options that I see being talked about are Harry Wilson, Dangu Utara, Szoboszlai, Sharda, Rayan, and then Tavernier as well. There may be other options, but they seem to be the main 6. Now, I'll say straight away, and I will come on to pros and cons for some of these players in a second, but I'll say straight away, if all of these players are getting starts and good minutes, they all are genuine, just good options, especially for the next 3 to 4 game weeks. Some of them are a little better longer term, but for up till the blank in 31, they're all good picks if they get regular minutes. So you can't really go wrong, but there are some pros and cons. So, for example, Tavernier arguably is the best option on the list because he's only 5.3 million and he's on penalties while Kluivert is out. But he's only just back from a hamstring problem. He didn't get a huge amount of minutes in Game Week 27. Game Week 28 is on Saturday, and then they play in Game Week 29 on Tuesday. There has to be some risk of a benching in one of those games. So even if he does start against Sunderland at home in 28, he could then be benched against Brentford at home in 29. And for that reason, I think you've got to ignore him. He's the one that I would like to buy, but I just don't think I can bring myself to go there. Because even if he does start in 28, it could be an early sub. And then there's no guarantee he would start 29 just because he's off the back of a hamstring problem. He is important to that team. And I'm pretty sure when he's fully fit, he will just start every game. And he may well start 28 and 29. But I'm just saying there's some risk there. When I put this graphic together, it was sort of with the thought of, priority order, i.e. Wilson's at the top of the list, so he's the one that I would definitely buy. But since I created this graphic and thought about it more, I keep altering the position. So Rayan, for example, I put 5th because Tavernier is now back. Brooks is back as well. Essentially, Iraola's got a lot of players to pick in those attacking positions. But when I looked into it a bit more, at the weekend when they played West Ham, every attacker was subbed, apart from Rayan. He played the full game. Evan Nilsson, Krupi, etc. They all got subbed at some point during the game. Didn't happen for Rayan. He's obviously just looked really good as well. But not only that, the stats are backing it up too. Now, this is a very small sample size. It's worth saying that. But 0.25 expected goals per 90, 0.24 expected assists. That is excellent. Sunderland at home, Brentford at home, Burnley away, next 3. I think he looks good. I won't go for him. I'm just going to say that right now. I'm pretty sure he won't be the one that I buy, purely because he's the one I know the least about. And because Iraola's now got options, I can only see Rayan's minutes going one way. I don't see him completing 90 minutes every game. And we're not quite sure how Iraola is going to kind of handle him going forward. So in theory, he's a really good pick. But I think I'm going to probably back against him because he's the one I know the least about. And because Bournemouth have got so many options. And I kind of want to get this right. And also, I think he's quite popular. Out of the 6 on the list, he's the one being brought in quite a bit over the last couple of weeks. So again, good option, but I probably won't go there. Sharda I had behind Szoboszlai, but I'm not sure that's correct, to be honest. Sharda didn't start last game after coming back from suspension. I don't think that was to punish him for getting red carded. I think it was to reward Lewis Potter for playing well. But Sharda did come on very early in that game. Basically, you could avoid Sharda because there's risk there, right? Got suspended, doesn't start the next game. There's no guarantee he starts against Burnley. Look what happened with Collins, for example. He picks up an injury, he can't get back into the side. Could happen with Sharda, but I think when you're picking the front 3 for Brentford, like the best front 3 is Sharda, Utara, and Thiago. So I think he will start against Burnley. And I think after that, he just keeps his place as long as he keeps playing well. It's just whether you want to take that very small risk for the Burnley game. For what it's worth, all these players are kind of fairly low owned, but Sharda is one of the lowest owned. So he's quite a big differential. More people are bringing in Dangu Utara. There's temptation for me to go Sharda. Part of the reason as well, and this is a bit of personal bias, is because the last time I considered going for him and didn't, he scored a hat-trick. So we know what he's capable of. And obviously it feels bad to go for someone else when Brentford have literally got Burnley away. Other factors to think about as well. If you've already wildcarded, Brentford do have good long-term fixtures. So after the blank in 31 where they play Leeds away, it's Everton at home 32, Fulham at home in 33. And then if we look a little bit longer term than that, it is then Man United away in 34 is not quite so good, but then it's West Ham at home in 35. Even if you look longer, it's Palace at home in 37. So United away in 34, City away in 36, not great, but overall the fixtures are quite good. So if you've used your wildcard, I would definitely lean heavily towards Sharda and Dangu Utara. So I really like Sharda. Again, it's whether you're willing to take the risk. Szoboszlai, I think, going forward, once Frimpong's there and if Gomez can stay fit, will play in midfield more often, especially if Wirtz is injured, but it's not a guarantee. So how much will that frustrate you? If he plays right back, is that just going to cause you pain? If it is, just don't buy him. But the fixtures in the short term are very good. West Ham at home, Wolves away, Spurs at home. We know he's on set pieces as well. And he always plays 90 minutes. And there is value in that. So I do quite like Szoboszlai. The top two right now are probably Wilson and Utara. I just think Harry Wilson's ownership, although it's 20% overall, in higher ranks like top 100k and stuff like that, it's even lower because a lot of people have sold him recently. He's got Burnley at home in game week 31 as well. So one of the best fixtures in the blank. And before that, it's Spurs at home, West Ham at home, Forest away. So 3 home games in the next 4. The minutes are looking good. Fulham have picked up 1 or 2 injuries recently, which will only help Wilson's minutes as well. I quite like him. And I think you could argue that he's the best option. But, again, I'm pretty sure Dangu Utara and Sharda just keep playing. I just think they will be pretty much nailed on. And so Utara, Burnley away, Bournemouth away, Wolves at home, Leeds away looks pretty good. 3 of the next 4 are away for Brentford. I think this is so close. This is why everyone's asking about it. I think there's a desire, that's the wrong word probably, but people want to go for Bournemouth and Brentford because they've got the best fixture in front of them. Like Brentford play Burnley, Bournemouth play Sunderland at home. Whereas for Fulham, you've got to wait until 31 for the Burnley game. But overall, having 3 home games in the next 4... I mean, Spurs at home is not a bad fixture. West Ham at home in 29 is not a bad fixture. And I think with Wilson, we're pretty sure about his minutes now. But this is why this discussion is so close and almost like so frustrating. Because honestly, right now, if I had to go for one, I think maybe I do buy Wilson. But when it comes down to it on Saturday or Friday when the deadline is, I may just go somewhere else. Like, it's such a close call. If someone said to me, I'm just going to double up, I'm going to go Utara and Sharda, absolutely fine. You want Sharda over Utara for a differential? Absolutely fine. You want to go for Wilson and Sharda, Wilson and Utara? They're all good picks. For me personally, I will avoid the Bournemouth guys, I think. Because Tavernier's minutes and Rayan, that's just the kind of manager I am. I'm very cautious. I'm not quite sure what's going to happen with Rayan longer term. And Szoboszlai I quite like. I don't know. I want to start using terms like, is the upside there with Szoboszlai? I mean, the guy is capable of getting big scores. I think if I had to pick 2 right now, I'd go Wilson plus one of the Brentford guys. And I think I will end up with Sharda because he's more differential. But even when you look at the stats, right, Sharda 0.36 non-penalty expected goals per 90, Utara 0.33 over the season. It's not even that much different. When they've started, Sharda's played 82 minutes, Utara's played 83. From a creativity point of view, they're not really that dissimilar. Like, they are honestly so close. Like, it's ridiculous. And, you asked me which forward to go for, Thiago. You asked me which defender to go for, Van Dijk. You asked me which cheap goalkeeper to go for before wildcard, Kelleher. There's obvious options in other positions. This one is tricky. So my top 3, Wilson, Utara, Sharda. Pick 1 or 2 from there and just hope you get lucky. So one midfielder people are getting frustrated with is Morgan Rogers. He's only got 3 attacking returns in his last 10 game weeks, and I think only 1 of them was a goal, so it's not been ideal recently. And also he's quite expensive at 7.7 million compared to some of the other midfielders that I've spoken about in this video. Now, I don't think people are necessarily struggling for funds right now, so it's not a big issue, but something to think about. In terms of buying him, I just wouldn't go there right now. Like, Wolves away is not a bad fixture, but then it's Chelsea at home and Man United away. Now, in the reverse fixture against Man United, Rodgers did get a 15-pointer, but United have improved since then, and it's an away game. So I just don't think the next 3 fixtures are good enough to warrant going there. And also, he's quite highly owned. So I prefer to just back against that ownership, because I think there's other options out there that have got much lower ownership that are just as good, if not slightly better. So I wouldn't buy him. And I did kind of say that on the deadline stream, I think, last week. People were looking at doing Rice to Rodgers, which I didn't hate because Rice hasn't got a fixture in 31. Rodgers had Leeds at home in 27, so it didn't look so bad. But I do think I said that when you get to 28, I don't think people will be looking to buy him quite so much. So I wouldn't go there. The next time I would look at it is in game week 31 itself. If you get to that week, you've got a midfielder to sell, you could definitely consider Rodgers. In terms of selling him, that's a little bit trickier. Now, I'm not saying you can't do it, because I've got Enzo Fernandez, for example. He's got a fixture in game week 31. I may well sell him this week. The difference is he's got Everton away in 31. Rodgers has got West Ham at home. And this week, Rodgers plays Wolves away. Enzo plays Arsenal away. So I think it's easier to justify getting rid of Enzo when you look at the fixtures. Maybe a little bit less so for Rodgers, because you'd be selling him before Wolves away. Ultimately, it's your team, so you can do what you want. If you've got the transfers to sell him, still manage game week 31, get 11 players out that week without taking hits, I don't hate selling Morgan Rodgers, but I think very carefully about it. Not a bad fixture this week, a good one in 31, always plays 90. It's difficult to justify selling a player like that. So if you want one of those other midfielders I've just spoken about, and like I said, you can manage the next few game weeks, I think it's okay. But I'm pretty sure if it was my team and I had Rodgers, I'd find it quite hard to sell him. And I think ultimately I would probably keep him. And you can't even really use the underlying numbers as an excuse to sell him, because they've been bad all season. So they were bad when people brought him in. They're still bad now. But we know he always plays. He's in an attacking role. He will get chances. So I wouldn't buy him. And I probably wouldn't sell him. But it's your team. Chelsea at home 29, Man United away 30. It's not great. If you wanted to move him on and you can still manage the rest, I think that's just about okay. So let's move on to forwards for a second. Primarily Ekitike and Thiago, who are both going to be popular options to bring in this week. If you look at Ekitike's non-penalty expected goals per 90, it's really good at 0.52. Compared to Thiago at 0.36. So Ekitike is getting more chances. Unfortunately, recently, he's just not putting them away. I'm already seeing comparisons, which I think is a little bit harsh, by the way, but comparisons to Darwin Núñez. Like, he always had good underlying numbers, and it always felt like he wasn't delivering enough. Maybe that will be Ekitike, but ultimately, I think he's a pretty good pick. But if I was only going for one of them this week, it would be Thiago. Because although his open play threat is not as good, he's got penalties. And also he's got pretty much guaranteed minutes, which Ekitike doesn't quite have. Now, that is not to scaremonger anyone. I'm pretty sure Ekitike will start the next 2, 3, 4, 5 game weeks, right? It's definitely possible, and the minutes will be good. But we have seen him be rested a couple of times, and one of them was in the league. So it is possible, if everyone else is fit, at some point Slot could bench Ekitike just to manage him. Because Isak's not going to be back till probably April, and Ekitike is the only number 9 they've got. So that is why I would go for Thiago. But if you've got Thiago and you want to bring Ekitike in, I really don't mind it. I think the fixtures are there. At some point, the hope will be he'll convert these chances into goals. All of a sudden, you're happy that you own him. The big question is, if you've got Ekitike, should you sell him to Thiago? Which I know a lot of people are considering. I find that really difficult to say yes to, because ultimately I think Ekitike is a pretty good pick over the next 3 weeks. Again, I would rather have Thiago, and I would definitely buy Thiago before Ekitike if you didn't own either. But to sell Ekitike to Thiago, it feels like that's quite difficult to justify. Just because we've got so much else going on at the moment. Like, there's injury suspension, there's other players people want to sell, there's a blank to manage in game week 31, there's transfers to be saved for post wildcard. Is Ekitike to Thiago justifiable? I'm not sure it is. I don't think I would make that move. And it's difficult because I really like Thiago. I'm so happy that I own him. And I understand the want from people to sell Ekitike to Thiago. I just don't think I would do it. So I know I'm going to get asked this question a lot this week. I think unless something changes, like we get more information that Ekitike is a slight doubt or something, which would obviously come out of nowhere, I think my answer all week is going to be no, I probably wouldn't make that move. But if you want to do it anyway, I completely get it. Because sometimes just having the player you want will make you feel better about your team. So both good options. I would buy Thiago first. Would I do Ekitike to Thiago? Probably not, I don't think. Not right now. So I've seen a few people start to consider bringing in Anthony Gordon. He absolutely smashed it in the Champions League the other night. He's getting some minutes in the number 9 position as well. He recently scored in the Premier League, which he hasn't done much over recent times. So that might stop playing on his mind as well. He's only 7.2 million. The ownership is very low. We know he's first choice penalty taker. In the Champions League, he already had his hat-trick. Voltemada was on the pitch, who's been struggling a bit recently. Gordon still took a penalty for his 4th goal. So absolutely undisputed first choice penalty taker. Fixture-wise, it's kind of okay. I think it's slightly better than Morgan Rogers because although Gordon also has to play United and Chelsea in 29 and 30, the other 2 games are both at home. So Everton at home this week and Sunderland at home in 31. So I still don't love that Newcastle have to play Man United and Chelsea in the next 3. But I think the fixtures are slightly better than what Villa have. The thing that would put me off Gordon is the minutes. Like in previous seasons, he basically just plays 90 minutes every single game, no doubts at all. But this year, his average minutes per start is 72, which is not great. And I think there is a chance at some point, especially when they get into the latter stages of Champions League and stuff like that, that he could even get benched. Now, I don't think that's necessarily going to happen, but it could happen. That's what kind of puts me off. And I think the fact that he does play Chelsea away in game week 30 would make me not want to buy him now. Now, he's been a weird one in FPL. Like, I know people that have owned Gordon are looking at this saying, don't even think about it, right? He's been awful all season. Like, he's smashing it in the Champions League. He's just not doing it in the Premier League. Those kind of things can flip at any point. I think Anthony Gordon's too good to just continue on this run of not getting many goals or assists. But because of the fixture, Chelsea away in particular in 30, I think he's a bit like Rodgers for me. I would probably consider bringing him in game week 31 specifically if I needed a new midfielder. So let's say I get to 31 and I keep Declan Rice up until that point, then I'm going to sell him. Then I would look at Gordon, then I would look at Rodgers. I'm not sure I would buy them before. Like, chances are he gets rested in the Champions League because obviously Newcastle have got such a lead in the playoff game. So he'll definitely start Everton at home. And then you'd think he almost certainly will start Man United and Chelsea. But it's about how many minutes he gets when he's on the pitch. And in some ways it shouldn't matter. He's 7.2 million. He's first choice penalty taker. But I just think there's better midfielders out there to look to buy right now. For what it's worth, when we get to 31, because of the penalties, I probably would prefer him to Rodgers if it was a choice between the two. I just don't think I would personally go there right now. But I don't think he's a terrible pick by any means. The underlying numbers are not bad. He should start most games. He's definitely first choice penalty taker. So is there any reason to keep hold of Trevor Chalobah with Chelsea's upcoming fixtures? So just a reminder, it's Arsenal away, Villa away, Newcastle at home, Everton away, Man City at home, Man United at home. It doesn't look great for clean sheets. And obviously Chelsea haven't kept many clean sheets recently anyway, even with really good fixtures. So I think for most people, if you need a new defender and you want to sell Chalobah, it probably makes sense. You can sell to someone like Hill and free up a lot of cash. You can go straight from Chalobah to Van Dijk. All pretty good moves. So I don't mind getting rid of him. The only reason to keep hold of him is if the rest of your defenders cover quite nicely over the next few weeks. Because in certain game weeks, it wouldn't be terrible to have to play Chalobah. So like Everton away in game week 31, for example, Chelsea have got a fixture that week when other teams don't. Like if I had to play Chalobah against Everton away, it's fine. Now, I know he's 5.8 million, so he's on the kind of more expensive scale for defenders. But at the moment, unless you're struggling for cash, it doesn't really matter. If you remember a few weeks ago, I kind of said that with Van Dijk. Like people were saying he's not good value at 6 million, which I kind of agreed with. But because I didn't need the money, I was treating Van Dijk like a 4.5 million defender. If he had a bad fixture, I would just bench him. So if your team's set up nicely, where you can bench Chalobah for Arsenal away, bench him for Villa away, and then reassess later on, I think it's okay to keep him on the bench. Like if you had to play him against Newcastle at home in 30 or Everton away in 31, it's not terrible, right? So there's obviously I wouldn't be buying Chalobah right now. And most of you, if you've got a good move like to Van Dijk, etc., you should just do it. But there will be people out there that have already got a good defence that don't need to make a move. It's okay to bench them at that price if you're not desperate for the money. So let's stick to defenders. What if you want to bring a new one in this week that's not Van Dijk and it's not Nico O'Reilly, who are the two most popular going into game week 28? Well, I've got a list of 6 here, similar to what I did with midfielders at the start. So Joachim Andersen, Ayer from Brentford, Konate, Chow, Hill, and then Senesi. So the 2 centre-backs from Bournemouth. They're all pretty good options over the next 3 to 4 weeks. So you can't really go too far wrong, but it will depend how often you want to play them. Like if you want to bring in a defender to play the next 3 to 4 weeks in your 11 every single time, you probably don't go for Chow because he's got Man United at home in 29 and Chelsea away in 30. But if you needed someone for this week, and then again with a good fixture in 31, Chow looks excellent. Everton at home in 28, Sunderland at home in 31. Now, obviously, that is a huge game between Newcastle and Sunderland. So that fixture for Newcastle might not be quite so good as it is for other teams. But on paper, Chow against Sunderland at home is pretty good. We know how good his goal threat is as well. So I think with in mind that you can bench defenders quite easily and hide them in weeks where they got bad fixtures, and blank game week 31 is important to think about, I wouldn't rule Chow out, but if you want to play him every game over the next 4, I probably wouldn't go there. On the 2 Bournemouth defenders, I would probably ignore buying Senesi now because he's on 8 yellow cards. And you've got to think about blank game week 31 because if you're not using a chip, you want to make sure you get 11 players out. Now, what's the chances that Senesi picks up 2 yellow cards in the next 3 games? Quite unlikely. So he will probably just start the next 4, but I just don't think it's worth taking the risk when you can get James Hill for 4.1 million, who doesn't have a suspension looming over him. And I don't think right now there's really too many doubts about his minutes either. Like, is there some tiny risk that Hill could get benched for someone else? Yes, but it's so tiny I wouldn't be worrying about it. So if I was buying a Bournemouth defender, I would go for Hill. It does worry me a little bit about their defensive performances recently, but they have been quite good at limiting chances at home, and 3 of the next 4 are at home. So Sunderland this week, Brentford at home in 29, Burnley away in 30, and Man United at home in 31. And also, it's worth thinking about your specific team, running it through a planner and seeing how your defence looks week to week. For example, I've got Senesi. I will probably be able to bench him in 29 when he plays against Thiago. So I can play him against Sunderland, bench him in 29, play him against Burnley. And then in 31, okay, Man United at home's not great, but at least I know he'll play as long as he's not suspended. And by the way, if you've got Senesi, don't be worrying about the yellow card situation right now. You can just reassess that week to week. I'm just saying I wouldn't buy him. With Konate, I think if you've got the money to go to Van Dijk, just buy Van Dijk. I don't think there's too much competition there. But Konate in his own right is a pretty good pick. And if you want to go all in on the Liverpool defence, Van Dijk and Konate, I don't mind it. But individually, like Konate versus Joachim Andersen or James Hill, I think I prefer just spending less money. So Konate is a pretty good pick, and Liverpool defence is very good. But I just think I'd either go to Van Dijk or I'd probably just spend a little bit less money. So Konate not bad, but I'm not sure I would bring him in. Ayer at Brentford, I think right now he is the first choice centre-back. I think he's ahead of Vandenberg and I think he's ahead of Collins. And I actually spoke to a Brentford fan last night that said that everyone else, and kind of talking about me really as well, thinks that Collins is first choice for the season. He's played really well, but actually he hasn't, and that's why he struggled to get back in. So I think Ayer might be first choice, and the fixtures are quite good. Burnley away, Bournemouth away, Wolves at home, Leeds away. And obviously if you can bench him for the Bournemouth away game, even better, especially if you've got Bournemouth attackers. But I just, even though I'm pretty sure he is the first choice centre-back right now, I just don't know if I would bother going there. Like for defensive contributions per start, he's at 8.71, which is not terrible, but James Hill is sat at 10.82. Joachim Andersen is 10.19. Like, how much better is the Brentford defence and the fixtures just to take that risk? I don't know if it is. Like, Joachim Andersen home to Spurs, is probably not that much worse than Ayer away to Burnley. especially when you factor in defensive contributions. Likewise, Hill's got Sunderland at home. There's just something telling me not to go for Brentford defence at the moment. And probably wrongly, because if Collins is not going to get back in, then it doesn't matter, right? Ayer is pretty nailed for 4.4 million. There's just something telling me don't go. That's just personal preference. Joachim Andersen, I think, is great. I've had him since wildcard 4. 3 of the next 4 fixtures are at home. Spurs at home is nothing to be that concerned about. West Ham at home in 29. And importantly, Burnley at home in 31. Now, the whole thought process about bringing in players right now should not be fixated on that 31 fixture. But I think for defenders, it is quite important. Because there will be, like game week 30, I've got Anderson, I'm going to bench him. So it doesn't matter that he's playing Forest away. But for Burnley at home in 31, I'm definitely going to have to play him. And he's got arguably the best fixture out of all these defenders. So Joachim Andersen, if you don't own him, it's boring, right? I get it. 4.5 million, not that exciting, never seems to score anymore. But he's great for DEFCONs. So I think the top 2 are Hill and Anderson. And I think I would go for Anderson first, then Hill. And then after that, I'm not quite sure. Like, I like Chow if you can bench him for 29 and 30. Because his goal threat is just so good. And Konate is also pretty decent. But for most people, I think if you're going cheap, Anderson first, then probably Hill. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed that video, make sure to give it a like and hit that subscribe button. I'll be back tomorrow for the game week preview. I'll see you then.